What's going on, everybody?
Hi, everybody.
So, we're back.
Yep. I'm not going to do it.
And we're back again.
There it is. See, I didn't do that.
It's just the three of us.
Sorry to disappoint you.
Man, all the songs that you keep putting in my head, I didn't do it either.
I like the Will Smith version better, though.
Yep. Yeah, agreed.
So, anyways, hey, today we are going to talk about... Hey, that's actually a really good transition. Look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't explicit, but...
No. It wasn't explicit. All right, so today we're going to talk about explicit things. Don't get too excited. We're going to talk about rated... is it okay for a Christian, someone who's following Christ, to watch rated R movies?
Yep.
Or listen to explicit music,
or
play violent video games.
Or a combination of the three.
Or all of them. And I think, well, this comes from, we should explain. I think it came from, we're doing a series in church, sermon series called Rated R. It's a walk through this book of Judges. It's going to be awesome as we continue to go.
It's going to be great.
But when you say Rated R, these kind of things come up in people's minds. And so that's what we're talking about, right?
Correct.
And
we actually had one of you guys request it. So we appreciate the suggestion and the thoughts, and hopefully we explore and answer the question.
Yeah.
Of, is it okay?
Yeah, we're going to do this.
First off,
well, are we
gonna first thing. I'm gonna put the disclaimer out there first.
Disclaimer.
If God is convicting you,
okay. Well, yeah.
Do you want to wait? Do you think I should wait for this?
I mean, that's a good disclaimer. Well, here's my disclaimer. Before we get started, these are the thoughts and speeches and inputs of three people who are following Christ but are not perfect. Don't take us as straight gospel.
Also, this is 100% the views of the Truth Response because you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't know how all that works, so if I need a disclaimer of this is not the views of the Truth Response as a company and an organization, but rather the people that are speaking them solely, then there's the disclaimer for that. But
yeah,
we are flawed humans. So
flawed humans. We're going to talk about this from the standpoint of flawed humans that are following a perfect God.
I know I look like a dwarf, but I promise I'm human.
So you completely skipped introductions.
Oh yeah, we didn't do that.
Look at you.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Derek. I'm the dwarf. This is Mathanasius.
Hi.
Also known as Matata. Or
just
you could just
Matt. You could just
call him Matt. That's boring.
That's
and then we've got Lizifer, or Lizard Lady, or
Lizard Lady.
I don't know, Lizzie. I don't know what Lizifer came from. So
Lizzie and Lucifer put together.
Oh, even worse.
It's Lizzie on a bad day.
Oh, Lizifer is Lizzie on a bad day. I thought you were meaning like right now. Lizzie's on a bad.
No.
Okay. So yeah, that's who we are.
Yep.
Welcome if you're just now tuning in. Like, subscribe, hit the bell.
Yeah.
Comment. We want comments. That's what I care about the most.
Neighbors.
Is comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this stuff. So, anyways,
tell us
thank you
we're ridiculous
for reminding us. What was your actual disclaimer?
That was it.
Okay.
That was
we're
it.
Flawed humans.
We're flawed.
Also, disclaimer, and I am going to throw it out there.
All right, didn't do it.
If you're being convicted of something.
Yeah, okay. I'll go ahead and do it. I was conflicted about talking about being convicted. So if you are convicted about anything, right? Like if there's something that is a personal conviction that God calls in your life, listen to it.
Yep.
Also, don't press it on others, like unless it's something that is scripturally and then don't press it on others. Just have the conversation.
Love it. Love them with it.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So, but if you are being convicted about something, you should listen to the conviction that God is placing on your heart first and foremost, especially over anything that we have to say here.
Yep.
So, welcome to the Truth Response. I'm going to pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for everything you've given us. I just want to... I appreciate so much the fact that we get to be funny with each other. We get to be silly. We get to have deep conversations, and at the same time, we get to show each other mercy and grace, and all in the midst of the teasing. And if there's one thing that I could have experienced with you is that when you were here, it would have been awesome. But I appreciate you allowing us to experience it with each other. And I pray that the conversation today is just, it's loving. It's built with grace in it and mercy. And I just pray that you are all over it and your words are spoken. So it's in your precious holy name we pray. Amen. Sorry, I wanted that extra stuff to be in the conversation, so go ahead.
Extra stuff?
Yeah, whatever you're talking about, the muggle.
Oh, well it has nothing to do with this. All right, so...
It does.
Okay, so what
It
I was
does.
talking about before the prayer is that I have a shirt that says Muggle on it. And
Right.
the reason I have it is because we went to Universal Studios to what I call Harry Potter Land.
Sure.
And my family, they each picked a house.
Uh-huh.
Like they did whatever it is they do to pick like what house they're in, Harry Potter stuff. And I refused to do it. I didn't want to do it. I said, this is dumb. I enjoy the movies. I don't need to be this involved. And so they got me a shirt that just said Muggle. And that was what I was told to wear while we went through Harry Potter Land.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's what that was. Welcome to that story, guys. So,
But that's actually something I want everybody to put a pin in
ooh,
that we can talk about here in a little bit. So let me write that down so I don't
put
forget.
a pin in it by
I'm gonna put
pencil.
HP. Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
All right. Okay. So where do we want to start?
Okay. Oh well. I guess we can start with movies. Let's start with the
Okay.
movies. Because so the question was, can a Christian or someone who's following Christ watch rated R movies? Which is kind of a broad ask because there's a lot of different kind of rated R movies. They don't
Sure.
all mean the same thing, and they're not all rated R for the same reasons.
Correct.
So,
But the fact that they've been given the rating rated R, right? The
Yeah.
rating R for restricted, I think.
yeah,
I think that's
restricted.
what-
Well, yeah, because, that usually also means that there could be content that may not be suitable for maybe children or may not be easy to take,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, the movie House by Ted Decker was rated R.
Okay.
And there wasn't, it was, I don't know, there wasn't like a ton of cussing, there wasn't any of that. It just, the content was exactly what you described. And so,
It's
plus
just
I think they were just getting views. But
intense. Sometimes things are just intense.
yeah.
So let's jump into that. So what should we approach?
Well, what are some reasons that things are rated R? Like, what are the big topics?
Well, okay, so nudity is probably number one, right? If there's nudity, a tremendous amount of language,
Right.
Gratuitous violence, gore. I guess those are the big things, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe, yeah.
I would say extreme violence and gore. Yeah.
When things are just
Language,
like this is
it would have to be like for it to be rated R just because of language would have to be like.
Especially nowadays, I
lot,
feel like they get
right.
away with a lot.
But nudity, I believe, earns, like, if it's actual, like, shows things, then I think that earns it rated R regardless, doesn't it? Or
Yeah,
can
I
you
think
be-
I think if you show nudity, then
So
if you're showing parts, yes, I believe.
heavy gore and stuff, that's pretty much an automatic.
Yeah, but I mean, just because it's rated R doesn't necessarily make it a bad film. It could just be an intense film. My subject for comparison, okay, because I've been thinking about this, I'm going to go with The Passion of the Christ. Okay? Christian movie, intense. I mean, it's not one that I wouldn't, like anyone who's a Christ follower, I would actually recommend watching it
Sure.
if they can handle.
Even if they can't, they need to see.
But I think it's incredible because you get to see the full weight of what Jesus did. But it is rated R, and it's not rated R for nudity or language. It's rated R because it's an intense film where you really
violent and gory.
Yeah, and it's definitely violent and gory. And so that I would still recommend that, even though it has the. I actually started to wonder this past week as we were thinking about this. I was like, I wonder how many people may not have seen The Passion of Christ just because it's rated R.
Yeah, I would challenge anybody who hasn't seen The Passion of the Christ to just check it out, because
I mean, it's intense.
it
really
is. But it is probably one of the best representations of
What he went through.
what he went through on film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite incredible. Like, just even if you like didn't see the crazy intense parts,
Yeah.
the rest of it is still really good. Which that's all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved the film. I saw it in the theater when it came
Yeah,
out,
me too.
and it was just
3 teenage guys bawling their eyes out. It was great.
it was like
I went
life
with
changing.
my family.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good.
Well, we did
family.
too, but
So, like, I wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies growing up. I didn't start watching rated R movies until I was 20, besides The Passion of the Christ, and that was the exception.
that's kind of wild. Like, we couldn't buy our own tickets to see Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
Never thought about that.
So, like, and the way that my parents, like, talked to me and my brother about it was, like,
I guess you may have been
with the
able to.
rated R
We
stuff
could.
was, like, it's just a slippery slope once you hit that and once you're used to that and taking garbage in and stuff like that.
Can
And,
be.
like, that made sense because we were still at that point, like, in high school and, like, developing who we are and,
Mhm.
a lot of stuff. And they didn't want that to be in the place to take up more space in our brains than it
yeah.
needed
I mean,
to.
it's if you can. Some people have, understandably, difficulties with certain explicit material, no matter what it is. And young kids, when their minds haven't fully developed and they haven't really experienced worldly things, where they've been out in the world, realized the world's crazy, for them to see certain things may not be a good idea.
Well, and it's a parent's job to train a kid up in the way it should go, right? So, especially, I mean, it's the whole reason why now you're barely allowed to do anything under 21, right? Like, all the ages are getting bumped up for things. So
Certain things I totally agree with, too.
most of the things I think I totally agree with, but
Especially-
even 18, I completely agree with most everything that is at least 18.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't when I was under,
until right.
but I do now.
But until you're of age, you're very moldable,
Oh, yeah.
and so it's a parent's job to make sure that they're very selective about the things that you experience, just because they don't want you to get the wrong things more so than the right things, right? So we've got The Passion, right?
Yeah.
The Passion was intense, and it was rated R. So that, I think, immediately answers or knocks out one answer, right?
Yeah, I mean-
to the question, the major question of,
Can you? Yes.
can you as a Christian watch these things and it not be a sin? I guess it would be a
Yeah.
good finisher for that
Yep.
specifier. And I mean, yes, because The Passion
On the
of the
whole,
Christ is
yeah.
rated R. and I would hope that you would want to see that film. So
I mean, that it's really good. So I think we have to go to the fact that the Bible tells us that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial.
Which we had an episode on that.
Yeah.
A month or two ago?
I feel like it.
Yeah, about a month or two ago. If you haven't listened to that one, check it out. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. If not, it's on Spotify for sure. But I'm pretty sure it was since we've started YouTube. So check it out.
I'm not sure if it was YouTube or not, but it doesn't matter. We did it recently. Check it out. But yeah, so I mean, when it comes to certain things, like I don't think we can promote a lot of nudity. Like, I mean, if there's an excessive amount of nudity and sexual material, I mean, really nobody needs to be ingesting that. I don't think so. Some people like to, but I don't think that's maybe it's not for the right reasons. And for some people, even a little is detrimental. So maybe be aware of what you might see. Do some research. If something's a stumbling block for you, look into it. See if this has got this, maybe I shouldn't see this. Especially if it's a lot. Language, if that is a problem. See, the thing about language is, it's kind of subjective. Some words don't mean anything to anyone. I mean, to certain people, they don't.
Yeah, anything Gen Z says doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
because I don't understand it.
But some things do, and so I mean, you also need to know where your lines are and what you're willing to intake. We got to be careful about the things that we are feeding on through our eyeballs, through our ears, all that stuff.
And the idea that who we are ingesting it with, because causing a brother to stumble and all of that as well, like we have to be aware of who we invite to watch those kinds of things and who we invite to listen to that stuff and whatnot. We're talking about movies now, but
yeah, I mean, so movies, some are really just violent movies, and for some people that kind of violence doesn't work, and for some people they can just kind of handle it. Someone that's it's different. It's really different. Biggest thing is you don't want it to be a stumbling block. Whatever you're intaking, if it's something that harms you by intaking it, by viewing these kinds of things, whether it's violence, whether it's nudity, if it's language, if it's horror, if horror starts to mess with your brain too much, probably shouldn't watch a lot of horror movies. All these things come into play. And also, like you said, if somebody comes over your house and probably shouldn't reach for the worst thing you have on the shelf or in your digital library or whatever it is now. Especially if you're not sure if this person can handle said material.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, here's a devil's advocate question. Even if we don't struggle with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Like, we know others do. Yeah. All of those things. There are other people that struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
And the more views something gets, the more money it makes, the more of that product it's going to be made. Is that us essentially supplying that out there in the world?
Oh, man, that's a pretty big. That's a lot of weight you put behind that.
I'm just asking. I mean, it can go a lot of different directions with that. Like, that it's not. That is such a minute part of the responsibility that, whatever, but.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these things are out there. They're getting made. There are some people that feel in the direction of we need to stand up against certain things in film so that those aren't made anymore. How much of a difference that makes, I'm not sure. Especially with stuff. I mean, there's people that are constantly, this is a bit more of an extreme, but some people actually protest and try to advocate people against, like, the porn industry all the time. But that It doesn't seem to do anything.
But it brings in too much money for the right people.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of corruption behind that. But as far as like, I don't know. As far as the other is concerned, I do know there are people out there trying to make good film, right? Wholesome film. Not even necessarily like Christian, but I know Pure Flix has become a big thing in recent years. I know that Kevin Sorbo has got his thing going on. He's trying to.
We've talked about him a few times.
Oh yeah, I love Kevin Sorbo. Anytime, if any of you know him, I'd love to have a conversation.
I mean, okay, so maybe the problem is it what we're trying to support or not? Maybe so one of the things my wife and I talk about a lot when it comes to movies, or actually any kind of.
Is it ethically sourced?
Well, no. It's more of the fact is, where was our heart condition going in? Like, is this something we're seeking out? Like, when these things are in there that make things rated R or make things explicit in any way, shape, or form, is that what we're seeking? Or does that just happen to be part of it? You know what I mean?
Does that actually matter, though? Because, I mean, obviously it does if the answer is yes, right? That's a problem. Because that's obvious. But do you guys know anybody personally that seeks out a movie just because there's language in it? Like,
well, okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
a lot of times, I mean, number one, I could say nudity. I could definitely
nudity. I get right because that's but that's also the one that, like, if it's got nudity in it, probably should stay away from it regardless. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, no. I mean, is it something because you just like a lot of violence, or you like a lot of gore, or you like a lot of language, or is it something like maybe there's a heart check that needs to happen there? Or if you're like, man, it sounds like just a crazy story that I'd like to get into just to listen to because for me, my problem is I get suckered into certain story plots. Like I'm a sucker for a really great story.
Yeah.
If there's language and it's naturally part of the story, it doesn't bother me so much. When it gets a little overboard, I'm like, why does this need to be in here? And some stories don't need to be told with a lot. Some maybe there's probably some exceptions, but when you see war and you see people cursing because they're getting shot at, like, I kind of understand. You know what I mean? But not every story needs to be told with a lot of language or violence or definitely nudity. There's some movies that I didn't think there would be any nudity in, and they were, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't really even understand why they had to put it in there. Because there's one in particular, I don't need to name it, but like there's one that I wanted to watch just because of the story plot, a storyline. It was a historical movie, and the story looked really cool, and I really wanted to watch it. And I thought this would be cool. I used to watch movies like this with my father growing up. I was like, I want to sit down with my kids and watch this. Then to come to find out that there's a scene with nudity in it. I'm like, well, now I can't do that. Like, why did they have to put it in there? I haven't even seen it yet. I haven't even seen the movie yet. I wanted to see it, but now I'm like, do I even want to see this now? Like, it seemed like a movie I wanted to check out, and I find myself like, I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
Well, I really wanted to watch Game of Thrones, and I watched season 1 and was like, I can't do this.
Yeah,
there's just way too much, I say unnecessary nudity. Well, most nudity is unnecessary, but I mean, I say that because, a lot of it takes place in like a brothel or whatever. At least in season 1.
There were scenes.
Horrid.
I remember. Yeah.
But, like, okay. But here's my thing. Like, the nudity thing, right, stay away from that. As far as everything else goes, like, I don't struggle with any of that. I don't curse.
For the most part. I can put most things in their context. My wife can't watch certain. So, okay.
I don't even notice it sometimes.
When it comes to, like, the thriller horror genre, okay.
Oh, yeah.
There's more that I can handle than my wife. And I don't even like too much of it. There's certain things I will and will not watch. My wife, there are certain things that are completely on her no list. And I think possibly...
Like kids? Anything happening to kids?
Kids, yeah. Anything that happened to kids. And I totally understand that because that's something like nobody likes to see that, really.
And demons?
And if you do, possession and demons.
Possession and demons. Yeah.
Possession and demons, something that there's certain there's certain exceptions. Like she sat and watched Constantine with me.
Sure. Well, that's more of a. It's really
like
not
more of a
serious,
comic bookish
right?
kind of thing. But
As bad as that sounds, Keanu, if you ever listen to this, dude, like I don't mean it's not serious.
Keanu, I love you, dude. Actually, I
Yeah,
would love
for
to
sure.
talk to you sometime. But it's not the point.
It kind of
Yeah, so there are movies like that. Like, but there are movies like if she thinks it's like a story about possession or something like that, then she will not. Like when the movie, I will mention this one because I haven't seen it at all. But when the movie The Pope's Exorcist came out, it has the dude from Gladiator in it, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe was in it, and I saw that premise and I was like, oh, that might be something. If you put something that has anything to do with kind of possible church history or hints at that kind of thing, I get intrigued. I like to see how the church, any part of the church, the big C church, is being represented. That's really what I wanted to see more than anything else. I wanted to see how that was represented in the film. And I looked at my wife, and she's like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to watch that. I haven't seen it yet. I might try to check it out at some point. But
well, as long as it's not got any of the nudity in it, I might check it out with you because I also like that kind of thing. And recently I watched a film, I don't remember the name of it.
But you have to be careful. I will
did
say
represent the church good, which I don't see very often.
Yeah,
So,
that's something that we're commonly misrepresented in media. But there, what was it? I was going to guess more. So
sorry.
no, it's okay. Oh man. So yeah, I wanted to check it out, but I haven't checked it out yet. Oh yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, but you do have to be careful because I also think that some of the media that's out there is demonic in nature.
Okay.
I actually do believe that.
I could see like The Conjuring, dude. Like that one was.
There's some stuff out there.
That one's rough.
That like and that's actually how my wife got to this point. Like she watched a movie. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was Insidious, but I'm not sure. There was some movies she watched, and when she got done, she felt like creeped out.
Yeah.
Right? Where she felt like there was entities that she welcomed into her home by watching this, and she didn't sleep well that night. It messed with her, and like that kind of stuff like is not good for us. Like we should not be doing that. And there's certain things that I've seen made in movies that I'm like, I'm more worried about the heart behind the movie. Like look, it's a movie. Right? I get it. For some people, they always like to point out it's just a movie, dude. I'm like, okay, but there was a heart behind making this movie that I'm really concerned about because why do they feel the need to make this and put this kind of thing on film, especially when it's really violent, like disgustingly black soul violent.
Oh yeah, there's a couple I could name that are like, why would you ever make this?
Yeah,
this is not even, and they're movies. I'm not talking like, the weird. This is a different industry kind of thing. I mean like freaking movies that were in theaters, like that are just like, who thought this up? That's
what concerns me a lot. Is like, what was the heart? Why did you feel the need to this? And so. Yeah, that kind of thing for sure. But the thing is that you just got to be able to, if you know that certain kinds of things aren't good, especially stuff like that. Like I don't go near it. If I think that's what it's going to be, I won't even touch it. And because I know that I don't want that in my life. I don't need it in my thoughts. I don't need that in my heart. And I think that's an important thing to think about when it comes to all this stuff.
Also, if you don't have the ability to shut something off, right? Like whenever it's breached that okay, this isn't okay, probably shouldn't venture into those movies in the first place. Like it's one thing because there's some movies that like catch you off guard, right? But not as many anymore. But you got to have the wherewithal to be like, okay, this is too much, I'm shutting it off. But one thing that I've noticed recently, as far as for myself is concerned, is I really got to start watching what I watch because I've got a kid. And not so much that I would struggle, but like I don't want her overhearing things. I don't want her like seeing things that she shouldn't see. Heck, we're on movies, but I mean music is a part of this too, having explicit music, and I had a playlist called And
Did it have?
yeah, that was the very first song on the list was Usher, and a bunch of other stuff that was not great. And they were even radio edits, right? Like I even searched out a playlist of songs that had the radio edits so that the bad words weren't in them and all that sort of thing. And I'm listening to this in the car with my wife, with Lizzie, on the ride to go get Serenity to pick her up from
And
her
he's
grandparents.
like, how do you not know these songs? Like, these are
Yeah, I was like, how do you not know
and
this stuff? And
because I wasn't allowed to listen to anything like this.
Yeah.
like, she didn't know any of them. I'm like, oh my
I knew
gosh.
some of them, but
Well,
like,
There wasn't. I mean, I
but
didn't. Have those
I
same-
felt convicted to the point where, like, I reached out to the DJ for this weekend because I had sent him this playlist, and I was like, dude,
Actually, funny.
I feel
know,
this
I know what
is like
playlist you're
bad,
talking
and I
about.
deleted it. Like, I deleted the playlist, and I was like, I just can't listen to this stuff anymore.
I actually now know what you're talking about because I went over with that DJ, that playlist. He's like, yeah, somebody sent me this, and now I'm just putting two and two together. And he went
Yeah,
through
it
the
was
song
me.
list, and I was like, yeah, you can't play any of that.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
oh my
but
goodness.
see, I got the thing was I was thinking, you know, like in the back of my mind, I was like, well, these are all the radio edits, and I told him, you know, like do the radio edits, whatever, you know, edit it yourself or
But
whatever,
even radio
and then like
edits suggested.
I was listening
most
to
of
it,
is at minimal suggestive.
well, and it's
yeah.
I was just
Okay.
sitting there and I was reading, and
So-
he was like, I guess he could feel the judgment coming off of me.
no, I mean it wasn't even you. It's just more like the embarrassment of the lack of respect in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, that's a conversation I had recently with somebody because of that, is that like it's not like, so like music from the 50s and 60s, like swing style and jazz and all of that stuff, bluesy stuff, it's not like they're not suggestive, right? It's not
Yeah.
like they don't talk about sex or anything like that. But there's a certain respect that is in the lyrics of most of that stuff that is not there
Yeah,
in a lot of the stuff
I mean,
now.
there's some exceptions where it's like, well, actually, now if you look at it like this, it's like, oh, that's something different. But
No, but I mean, like,
I
even
get
when
you.
they're talking about that stuff, there's a different level of
well, let's
respect,
now
so.
that we've officially kind of moved to music, I think that's. So here's something that I discovered with myself. So yeah, when I was growing up, I kind of listened to pretty much what I wanted, within reason. I wasn't crazy, but I can say that the closer I've drawn to Christ, the more music that I've looked at, that I used to be like perfectly fine with being on the radio, perfectly fine having a playlist, never really had any thought about being around. I've definitely started to change my opinion on it. And I love music. I love music. Pretty much
Yeah.
every genre. I love going to shows
same.
and festivals. It's my thing. I love doing it. But even now, it's like, well, there's certain songs that I've re-listened to and like, I don't think this one's for me anymore. There's bands that I stopped listening to because of some of the things they say from stage. I'm like, I don't even know. I can't support you if you're going to say anti-Christian things, basically. Or if you're going to say kind of demonic or anything that represents Satanism. Like, I'm like, if that's kind
So
of...
like AC/DC's off your list?
I try not to go to certain things. Like, some of it's hard.
Okay,
because
but
it's
what
like
about the
classics, you know?
metaphor? Like, what about the metaphor in it?
What do you mean?
So like, for instance, AC/DC.
Right.
Like, there's an album called Highway to Hell.
Yeah.
The song is really a lot of the album is about being on tour and the struggles and the demons that come with it and really the highway to hell that they're on, right? Like, what about the metaphor in it?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the context of the song. But for me, like, there's certain bands I just avoid, and certain kinds of songs that I avoid. I've gone through music, and I'm like, all right, let's listen. I want to listen to some classic rock or something, and I'll put a playlist on, and I'm like, nah, not that one. I'm not gonna listen to that one. Nope, I don't. And it's because I'm like, I think I need to move past certain things. And then there's still some songs I really like, but. So I'll tell you an example. I even went to this music festival a few years ago, and there's bands that I was going to see And then there's people I wanted to see that I hadn't seen, and then there's people I wasn't going to see. So there was like some bands like, all right, let's see, Metallica was playing. I'm like, I'm going to go see Metallica.
Sure.
Definitely. You know, wasn't even I've never seen Metallica. I'm seeing Metallica.
Right.
And then Rob Zombie was playing, and I was like, okay, I want to say that I've seen him, but I'm not necessarily going to be. His imagery is so bad. It's so bad. Like, there was times I was listening to music and like not even looking up anymore, because I didn't want to see all that stuff. And so trying to put yourself on guard, making sure that you're not intaking too much of anything that's negative like that. Then there was bands that I just knew, I'm not going to go listen to them.
Like Incubus?
Oh, I like Incubus. I grew up listening to Incubus. I listened to a lot of Incubus over the years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't say they're perfect. I used to listen to a band called The Used, and then I can't listen to them anymore. And it's a shame, too, because I used to like really dig their music.
Wasn't there a band called Him?
I want to say, yeah.
That stood for like His Infernal Majesty or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think I really got into them.
Yeah.
But
that was like my high school days.
But yeah, there's certain songs and certain music I just can't. And then it's like Sadie, there's times where I'll be in the car and a song come on and my kids are in the car and it has certain cursing, and I'll start like, oh, maybe we shouldn't listen to this. And I'm like, she's like, you realize you listen to these other songs and they have similar words in them and you don't pay any attention to that. And I'm guilty. I'm totally guilty. It sounds very hypocritical when I do it, because there are certain songs I don't really pay attention to the fact that there's certain words in, because I've listened to these songs forever. And so I don't even hear them anymore.
It's the nostalgia, I think.
Yeah. But then a new song comes on the radio and it says a certain word, and I'm like, oh, we can't listen to this. And she's like, kind of a hypocrite right now, because you were just listening to something. Yeah.
Don't you hate those moments?
Yeah. Yeah.
When God gives you your spouse to humble you.
Oh, she does. She
So,
does a great job.
in all of this, like in the movies and in the
Music. All of it.
music, all of it, like, also, not only is it bad for you, but is it consuming a lot of your time?
Ooh, that's
is
a
your
good one.
focus, and you're consuming so much that you're missing out on what God's calling you to do.
That's a good
I
point.
could see like the concert side of things for music, but like I don't think I've ever just not since high school, I should say, just sat and listened to music. I've usually been doing other things. You watch a lot of TV in the background,
I used to watch TV, study, and listen to music.
but it's a good point. Is that consuming?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Is that your runaway? Is that your go-to?
Yeah,
You
like
know-
I could see that for me for sure.
So,
like
I mean-
Netflix or whatever. Like
I had to do that with sports.
I'm sitting down and watching TV instead of doing anything else that could be productive.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did that with sports. I used to be crazy when it came to, especially football.
Still there.
Well, I am crazy, but not in
Right.
that
Not
way.
in this way.
So, like, I mean, living up in Baltimore, Ravens fan through and through, and we had Purple Fridays, and everybody would wear jerseys and purple stuff on Fridays. I did that. Sunday, I looked like I was trying to play in the game, wearing jerseys and everything. Like, crazy. That's just what I was. And I was watching every game, and the thing is that, like, it became something that kind of controlled my life. Like, if they were playing or if there was something going on, I had to be a part of it. And what was worse is that, like, if they won or if they lost, it put a big
Change your demeanor.
Oh yeah, and my week, and it's crazy how much it had an effect on me, and it took a while till I started recognizing this, and I had to recognize it with every sport. Like I'd get to, if I got into the Orioles up there, baseball, I would watch. If I got too into that, or hockey, like hockey stresses me out. I love hockey. And it's better if I'm live. If you're live, I'm better.
Sure.
But watching hockey on TV, I've noticed, it gives me anxiety. It just does, and I don't know why completely. But that's the point. So when I find that something's bringing negative things to my life or controlling me, and is taking over too much, where it's now, it affects me in these ways, I have to get rid of it, you know. Or if, like, even if you want to binge watch a television show, and let's say it's not even a bad show, so to speak, but if that takes precedent over other things in your life or God in your life, you know, one of the things that somebody said one time was that, you know, if you want to see if something has become an idol in your life, how quickly are you willing to give your time and your money over to that thing versus God? And if the answer is you're giving way more to that than God, then that's an idol in your life.
Sure, but what about, like, I don't feel like I'm at a point where, like, it's an idol for me, but it's just become a distraction. Yeah, like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something that I actively choose over God, but it's just something that has become habit.
Complacency.
Yeah. So, like, I would say complacency may be more of the idol than the actual activity, but, like, you know what I mean? I don't know how to, like, I don't know. Like, a lot of times it's go until 6, 7 o'clock at night. You just sit down and watch TV.
I get it.
It's not like I'm going, I want to watch this, I don't want to do that, or I'm putting this off.
Well,
right?
Sometimes I get it, because sometimes you're just exhausted. I mean, even in my household, my wife and I, by the time, and it's getting worse now, because the kids don't go to bed. Like, when the kids would go to bed when they were younger, you know, it was a little better. We'd have a little more, because when they were really young, you'd put them to bed at a reasonable time, and then you'd have a lot of time between them going to bed and when we should really be going to bed, where we could spend time with each other.
Yeah. And
we would spend time, sometimes we'd watch a show together, or we'd just talk, or we'd read together, or whatever. Like, we'd do a lot of different things. As they got older and stayed up later, or wouldn't go to bed earlier, that time got lower, and also we became more exhausted. So it's like, hey, there's probably more productive things we can do, but we're so tired, let's just throw on a television show. Let's just veg out, you know. And it's not productive, but it's like we're too exhausted, and then but we're trying to just spend time together however we do it.
This is one of those moments I wish we had somebody older than us, like older enough, like a whole generation older than us.
Bring the Elder Scrolls
to talk about, because, like, I wonder if that's normal throughout generations,
maybe,
or if that is because now everything's at that instant speed, you know.
Well,
that we don't have to work for it, right? Like, all we had to do was turn on Netflix, and we've got TV
I did the
shows
same thing before I had streaming services. But at the end of the day, I would put something on my television and just veg out until I went to sleep. So I did that with DVDs. I did that with over-the-air networks. Didn't matter. It's just something that I've always kind of done. I mean, it's easier now with streaming services, and it's easier now with, I mean, if you've got a Roku and a smartphone, man, you got everything at your fingertips.
That's true.
So
I would say it was just as bad, because I think of, like, because I like history, like the radio dramas and stuff, and there's, like, some soap operas that started off as radio dramas, like, and they're still continuing on today. So, like, it was just a different facet of it, you know. Instead of seeing it, it was, you know, people talking on the radio and stuff like that. It was that kind of thing.
I mean, you definitely hear about, like, families getting together on the radio, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you remember the famous, was it the Wells thing? The alien invasion thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
You know what I'm talking about. They made a movie about it.
War of the Worlds?
War of the Worlds. Like, that was a radio program. Right. And they didn't, like, warn the people.
Right.
Right? So that radio program came on, and people thought it was real life and started freaking out. I mean, if you'd never heard anything like that either, you might do the same thing. But
right. But we do nowadays.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
called CNN and Fox News and... oh, wait, my bad. Was that...
Those aren't the best things. Oh, that's the other thing. Some people get addicted to the news. Or
Well, that's why I
we'll
threw
call
both
the
sides
news.
of the news on there, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
because
like I remember I've seen people that it's like CNN's constantly on, Fox News is constantly on, or maybe the not even like the news like that. It could be something just political or financial, and they're just constantly looking at those numbers. They've given their life over to these things. Like that has to be. They have to know. They have to see what's going on, and yeah. So if it's that like that, then we haven't talked about video games, by the way.
yeah. So, video games.
Video games, some of that, like the blood and gore and stuff, falls into that category and stuff. But video games, like, as bad and as gory as they can be, like, when they create them and make the sequences of, like, your decision affects what's going on in the world, whether that's negatively or positively, there are consequences to actions. So I may not agree, like, with the whole video games, and, like, most, like, a lot of them are pretty bad, but, like, there is consequences to the actions.
And it feels like it's your responsibility a lot of times. I agree. Because I when I'm playing, like, for instance, Baldur's Gate.
And, like,
I feel the responsibility to do the right things.
Yeah, and there are people that just play them to see the negative and what that does and stuff like that. But, like, usually the consequences of that is, like, not so great for completing the game or finishing the game or, like, doing well in the game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I can handle...
Everybody wants to be a hero in their own story.
Yeah. Not a lot of video games have nudity. There are some.
Yeah, it's becoming more prevalent, though.
Yeah. I don't...
I mean, but the cool thing, like, so a lot of the games are also building in, which is...
You can turn it off.
You can turn it off.
Which I think is great.
Which is great. I don't think they should have it in there in the first place, but it's the next best thing.
Well,
right?
It's, anything that... People can take advantage of everything, but...
Yeah.
So, no, video games, there's certain amounts of violence. I mean, like, there's certain games that I don't go near, like Grand Theft Auto. I'm like, that just seems... I've seen that, especially with kids. I'm like, no, kids should never play games like this. And then if they should never be playing games like this, I probably shouldn't be playing games like this.
Sure.
And then there are some games that I do play that have violence in them, but I don't really play it necessarily for that as much as
Assassin's Creed.
I do play Assassin's Creed, but not necessarily for the violence as much as I like the open world adventure of doing whatever you want.
Sure, the escape.
Yeah.
And
I don't get as much time as I used to. But
to be honest, like, because a lot of people will be like, well, violent video games make people violent. Well, that's not really true. It just isn't. But the thing that I think is bad for people and that you should stay away from is the toxic environments in which some games are played around, right? Like, when it comes to, I don't know if Fortnite's toxic or not, but
it is.
I know League of Legends is like super toxic if you allow the chats and stuff like that. You can play without that stuff, but when you get into the communities of some of these games, super toxic. Like, just the overwhelming amounts of negativity that is within some of these communities of gaming is really that's the part I would caution people towards when it comes to video games, because ultimately I don't think a video game trains you to do anything.
No.
But the people interactions
Yeah.
definitely affect you. So
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the same caveat as all the other ones, right? Like, if there's a ton of nudity, probably should stay away from it. If you struggle with language and there's language, probably should stay away from it. Like, there's those things too.
Or get a game that you can... There are games you can turn language off.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So that might be a feature you need to find out first. But, yeah. So for me, if you can't... If things become something where it's starting to affect you, you might need to look into that.
Yeah.
For some that get into games, it really starts to affect them in negative ways. And I like what you said about, like, the games with chats and stuff like that. Like Fortnite, now it's mostly like young kids speaking that young, whatever stupid language. But, like, oh my gosh, like my boys.
Yeah, but that doesn't change what the language means.
No, not necessarily. So They
Yeah,
use
just
just
like-
dumb words.
Well,
and
I mean,
stuff.
like the word frick. We know what that means, right? It's a substitute.
Yeah, but like skibbity, when they're talking about skibbity,
I don't know what that
and
is, so.
it's one of their phrases, skibbity, sigma. That the other day I was laughing. It made me laugh, and my one son was playing. I think it was Fortnite, and
Probably.
there was a guy that was trying to get him in the game or something. He's like, I got a toe tickler coming for me. I'm like, did you just say toe tickler? He's like, yeah, he's trying to tickle my toes, which meant he was trying to get him.
Right.
I was like, what? Like the ridiculousness that goes on there. And then they're really hard on each other, especially different groups.
That's
like
the toxicity that I'm
the
talking
toxicity
about,
when
but,
people
like,
are just like super mean about playing these games.
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't play. Maybe, you should just stay off of this game and just all the negativity.
You're trash. You're trash. Your game's trash. Everything's
garbage.
Yeah, those kind of words.
And I know the video game developers, they try to build things in to discourage that through like voting, different things with people, most team player or whatever, but it's not effective, unfortunately. So I don't know. Like there's a lot of different routes I guess you could go.
Yeah.
With a lot of the things. Really, if you feel convicted about it, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big thing. If kids are involved, probably should err on the side of caution, right? Like, that's always the better option if you're not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to if something is not going to be okay for your walk with Christ, go to God with it. And if it's something that he says, yeah, you really need to get rid of this in your life now, then I think he'll give you that conviction.
Yeah.
I recently saw this video online, and I thought it was pretty good, and it's kind of related to this, where a guy was like, hey, do I need to stop smoking weed before I can follow Jesus? And the pastor was like, no. He's like, hold on, you don't think you understand. I'm smoking marijuana. Like, do I have to stop smoking marijuana before I become a Christian? And he's like, no, you don't have to do that. He's like, I don't understand. He goes, well, see, here's the thing. He's like, do you need to clean yourself off before you take a shower? He's like, no, you just take a shower. He's like, yeah. If you come to Christ, you don't have to be perfect before you come. You don't get rid of all the stuff before you come to Christ. Well, you let him work on that stuff with you. If it's something he wants you to not do, then he's going to let you know.
Spoiler alert. We're not going to be perfect this side of heaven.
Yeah.
So that'll never
It's going to be a journey for all of us. Yeah.
I know.
And you know what? The thing is that for some people, and people have a problem with this, but here's the reality situation. Here is, what is it called? They have a phrase for it now. The unpopular opinion, whatever it is. The hot take. Here's the hot take. Okay.
Is that what hot take means?
Hot
Unpopular
take
opinion?
is the hard opinion that may be unpopular opinion. Here's the hot take that people need to understand. Okay, and I'm gonna get a little animated, but here's the thing: just because God says you need to get rid of this first in your life doesn't mean that person needs to get rid of it in their life. That person may have something else that is more important for them to be working on with Jesus, and so that is what they need to work on with Jesus. Just because it's you doesn't mean it's them. Mm-hmm. I just want to point that out there.
Well,
like
some of that has to do with like personality and who they are and stuff. Like I think about alcoholics. Like just because like somebody's prone to alcoholism doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to drink because I'm not prone to it. Like
this is true.
To being alcoholic and stuff like that. Am I going to drink around somebody who's an alcoholic? No.
Well, because we're not going to be stumbling blocks.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Is like
I've got a hot take for you.
Okay,
right?
You always have hot takes.
So
all his takes are hot takes.
Yeah, right. Well, here's a super unpopular thought. Just because that person who claims Jesus is homosexual doesn't mean that they're not working on something else in their life. Let's like get real, right?
No, that's good.
No, that's it.
Good.
Like, are you saying that you don't struggle with anything?
Oh,
are you saying that you're fixing everything in your life right now?
People look in the mirror more.
You are like judging this person. Like, yes, it's wrong. I'll sit here and also say it is wrong, right? But
So is
just
99%
because
of
God
what people are doing.
just because God is working on something else in their life and hasn't fully revealed to them that, hey, you should stop this, doesn't mean that
You know,
that
you pointed out something, though. We're not going to be perfect this side of heaven, right? In that sentence, you implicate that there's going to be something we're still not doing right.
right.
So if you're working with God on your journey, he's going to work on the stuff that you need to work on. The stuff that's the most important in your journey to continue to do. Maybe, okay, no matter what the sin is, maybe what he's looking at that person's like, you really need to trust me more than anything else right now. Maybe it's, this is a toxic thing in your life that if you can't get rid of, you're not going to be able to follow me.
Yeah, but they're living in sin.
We're all living in sin.
Or not. Maybe that phrase means something different than most people think it means.
The
right?
thing is the closer, I will say this, the closer you draw to Jesus, okay, this is everyone from the person at the pulpit all the way down to the person that's just coming in the door. The closer you get to Jesus, I will say, and I found this out in my life many, many times, there are certain things that you start to lose the taste for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need this in my life. I need to do this in my life. I don't need to say these kinds of things.
And even if you can't give it up on your own free will, alcohol, pornography sometimes.
He can help you with those.
Like, you know that it's something you don't want, right? Even if you can't give it up, it's something you don't want. And that is so very true.
Yeah.
I had somebody come up to me a couple of weeks ago at church, right? Friend of mine, close to, she lets everybody know she's had a drinking problem for most of her life, right, or a long time, and she was like, "Hey, I'm coming up on I think it was 2 years of sobriety." I was like, "That's awesome," I was asking her where she'd been and everything like that, and it's like, yeah, I honestly I couldn't do it without you guys and Jesus. It was one of those things. It's it's something that sometimes you just can't break without Jesus giving you the help.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a pastor one time, he was giving a sermon. I thought it wasn't bad at all, but he said something that almost seemed pompous because he was talking about another pastor admitted that sometimes he struggles with things, and he spoke about this other pastor as if he was not getting it right. I mean, everybody's on a journey. The pastor that was speaking the sermon was spoke of, well, I came to Jesus. I don't have that. I don't have that desire to sin anymore. That's what that means. And I'm like, yeah, in some things that you may have no desire in certain areas of your life.
But in saying that's revealed your pride.
But yeah, but yeah, that's what I mean. It's you realize that you can't blanket statement all of it.
Well, the Bible says the heart is desperately wicked.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it is, and
right.
So I will say that as you progress in your walk, yeah, there are certain things that you're going to be like, yeah, you know what, I really don't need this. And God's going to work on that, and he's going to show you things, and that's great. Actually, it's the best. But
especially on the other side,
we got to stop beating everybody up. Everybody he's called in the Bible, other than himself, has had stuff. Okay? And he works with them. The amount of patience he had with his disciples as he worked physically with them was astounding, and they still weren't quite getting it right. You know what I mean?
Peter.
Yeah,
we talked about Peter.
We do talk about Peter. Paul, even. But
oh yeah.
That's the point is let's, these things, you gotta search your own heart. Pray with God. Hey, where am I at with this? And God will show you. He will. But you got to be willing to listen to his answers too.
And I would say if you're still on the fence on something, it's totally okay to ask those you're doing life with that are believers in Christ as well, what their thoughts are, on it, because discernment comes often through those that you're doing life with, especially within the church. I use those around me all the time for discernment and things.
Yeah. And
I'm one of those very passionate people. If you've been listening for a long time, you will definitely know that I've had some passionate moments on here. And but those passionate moments have also led to realizations that I'm wrong about things. So as far as that goes, like, reach out to those around you. Like,
Yeah. You got to be willing to talk about these things too. Sometimes you got to be willing to be wrong. And sometimes that's hard. But I will say this, even with, like, if you have a great spouse that you can talk, that sometimes is worth its weight in gold. My wife, I don't know what I did to deserve such an amazing wife. I don't. She's amazing. And don't get me wrong, she's got her stuff too. But I love her patience with me through the stuff that I bring to the table, It's fantastic. I don't know how I would make it without her.
I'm glad my wife doesn't have to worry about that. I'm perfect.
Jesus.
Oh, man. Okay, so I said I wanted to come back to Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah, we need to do that, and then we can
and then we'll wrap up, right? So I wanted to bring up Harry Potter because Harry Potter is not rated R.
The Boy Who Lived.
Right. And it's also got a lot of dark imagery.
And witchcraft.
And witchcraft. And I'm not sure what I believe when it comes to what J.K. Rowling has stated about her stories and the fact that there's, Bible-y stuff throughout it and all that sort of thing, like intentional and all that kind of sort of thing, but which she's come out and said. But I'll tell you, like, just because something has magic in it doesn't mean it's evil.
I'll go with that.
Right? But it also doesn't mean you need to see it.
That's true.
I'll go with that too.
So, like, that should not be the judge. I mean, one of the most famous and most popular, and the reason I bring up Harry Potter is just because, like, it's one that the church, like, that was a hill that the church died on for a long time, right? Was the Harry Potter films. Like, it's like, oh, that stuff's evil, like, and that sort of thing. There was a lot
even
of...
before the films, books.
Right. And so...
I wouldn't say all churches, but yes, there are churches.
The church as a whole, as a large, little C, big C, whatever. Big C church. Big C church pretty much shunned it. But one of the most popular and most famous writers of all time wrote a book called The Chronicles of Narnia. And it's literally about Jesus. And it's got witchcraft all over it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
and
one
fantasy
thing,
figures and everything else.
To allow yourself to fantasize and to wander off into amazing worlds, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. If you start to look at it as... I think it's the same thing as when I had somebody, one of my students asked me a question. I think this is the same thing. So he said, hey, as a Christ follower, is it okay to look into other religions?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's a good question. Yes, you can look into other religions. I said, but there's a line. He goes, well, what's the line? I said, if you're studying what other religions say and how they operate, I said, the second you put anything into practice, that's crossing the line. But to just see what they are and what they're about and understand why they do what they do, there's nothing wrong with that. So if you're watching Harry Potter and you're like, this was a cool movie, I enjoyed the adventure, great, fantastic, do it as much as you want. But if you're like, I think I want to be a wizard, I think I'm going to start trying to look into witchcraft and seeing if I can do spells, and you've crossed the line. Maybe you need to bring it back a bit, okay? So that would be my example.
Yeah, so all of you who have played that sorting hat game are sinners. No,
Is there a sorting hat game?
Oh, there've been quizzes for all of time.
Yeah, that's what the quizzes they would have taken probably.
To figure out what house you're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
you
something...
muggle.
Like Pottermore or something like that.
I don't know. I didn't do it. I just was like,
Yeah,
I don't need to
there were
invest.
several out there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was just being dumb. But, I mean, that's definitely... That there is a line, right? And one of my favorite things to talk about is the fact that someone who deals in counterfeit money never studies the counterfeit but rather studies the real thing.
Yeah.
So my suggestion would be study truth,
The Bible.
focus on truth,
Yeah.
and
It'll be a lot easier to filter the rest of it out.
you can filter all that. Yeah,
That goes
stuff
with
just goes.
music, movies, video games, or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, to wrap up, I know we didn't necessarily probably answer the question the way that you wanted us to, but am I giving you permission to listen to that and watch that stuff? Nope. God did. God said,
Or didn't.
all things are permissible,
But not all things are beneficial.
but not all things are beneficial. And if it's not edifying to the body, maybe you should consider not doing it.
Yep.
So that is personal conviction at that point.
Yep.
A lot of it is personal conviction. So are you allowed to? Sure.
Should you? That's up to between you and God.
That is between you and God. And you know what? Don't judge others.
Yeah. Don't judge others. Work on yourself. Encourage, love. Leave comments and questions. If you feel like, hey, there's something you'd really like to know more on, leave a comment. If you think we did a great job, leave a comment. If you think that we're a bunch of bumbling idiots, leave a comment. Whatever it is, we'd love you to leave a comment.
If
the
you
point
think
about
I'm
this
wrong-
is read a comment.
If you think I'm wrong, leave a comment.
He loves that.
And there should be nobody out there that leaves a comment. If
there should totally be a
no,
lot of comments.
There's no comments because I'm never wrong.
Maybe not this episode. But yeah, so no, but yeah. Let us know. Also, keep these ideas coming. We love it when you give us ideas for shows because, one, it takes the pressure off of us to come up with new ideas. And two, because it means that you're participating. And we love that so much because it's not just about hearing me speak or Derek speak or Lizzie speak or whoever else we have on the show. It's about the truth and getting it out there. And I just hit the microphone. But thank you. And don't forget to subscribe.
Right. So on that note, though, one thing that we sometimes struggle with because we've been doing this for 4.5 years, 4.5 years, is repeating content.
Yeah.
And I know that long ago, we're doing things way differently now than we did that long ago. But if it's something that you want us to talk about,
Tell us.
it's relevant to us to then talk about.
Yep.
So,
We'll do it again.
we don't have a problem redoing something, sending you a link to something we've done if it was recent and you just missed it. I just responded to an email today.
Maybe we need to
sending a link,
update stuff.
Maybe
You know?
maybe
we got
we're
new
wrong.
thoughts. We got
Yeah.
new thoughts. We've
Maybe.
talked about it since then.
So, just let us know. We really want to put out content that you're
you wanna
curious about. So,
Yeah. All
thanks,
those things.
guys, and God bless.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Make sure to subscribe and give us a like on iTunes and Spotify so that you will never miss a show. And while you're at it, check out our Facebook and Instagram pages and make sure you tell your friends about this show. You don't want them to miss out on the truth because we are all about the truth here. Thanks for joining us this week, and God bless.